portrait in his house.
Oh, nice.
Of Mr. Mandela. So I grew. That's how I was exposed to
Through your grandfather.
through my grandfather.
Amazing.
So that's how great he is. But at the very same time, there are certain misconceptions that people have about the president.
Right.
And sometimes, they say Mr. Mandela was a sellout.
Right.
Mr. Mandela was this. Mr. Mandela did not give the people of South Africa back the land.
Right. Well, I want to take people back to make them understand that Nelson Mandela was the first black man to have the courage to bomb the white system and the white infrastructure of South Africa. Now, how is the first black man to have the courage, to have the balls to fight back, not just peaceful protests, but to actually go outside the country, come back and organize his people, and start Umkhonto weSizwe, and hit back with guns, with bombs? How is that man a sellout? Oh, no, but after that he went to jail and maybe he became soft. I say, but you don't even understand what you're saying when you say he was a sellout. Why is he a sellout? Because, the economy is in the hands of white people. Is the economy not in the hands of white people all over the world? What was Nelson Mandela able to do? Nelson Mandela was able to break the physical chains that existed, to say that you cannot be a doctor. You cannot go study in that school. You cannot live in this area. Nelson Mandela was on, and his comrades were the ones who broke those physical chains. Right? Another thing that people don't understand is that when Nelson Mandela became president, the white people of South Africa had looted the government. Nelson Mandela only had 4 days of resources to actually run the government when he became president.
Wow.
So obviously there were certain compromises that they had to make.
That's true.
During that time, right? And how is Nelson Mandela in 5 years supposed to turn around something that had been operating for hundreds of years?
Yes, that's true.
He inherited a system that was literally serving only 12% of the population, which were whites. And now you come into power, you need to now take that very same infrastructure and serve 100% of the population. These are the things that people don't understand.
That's true.
You are quick to put these labels without even understanding or comprehending what you are saying. The question is, Mandela has ran his race. He has done his thing. Madiba died 10 years ago. This year we're going to be celebrating 10 years of Nelson Mandela's passing. What are we doing as the next generation to further what Nelson Mandela has done?
That's true.
Instead of him calling a sellout and what have you, what are we doing as the next generation to further?
To build upon that legacy.
Upon that legacy and the strides that have been made.
Wonderful. That is great. The last question that I have for you obviously would be with regards to his views about this topic of the land. I'm sure at some point you would have discussions with him that tended to be political. Did at any point he express his view about expropriation of land without compensation?
Nelson Mandela very much believed that land was very key and needed to be redistributed to the rightful owners of the land, which are the African people. Unfortunately, he had so much to do. So also, he didn't want to be president, but he was forced to be president. He felt that this was a new world that he was not in touch with. And he felt younger people should be the ones to lead.
Take up the role,
As I'm advocating for youth leadership today. You see, with so much to do, so little time, you have to choose what you're going to focus on, right? And when you make little strides, you expect then the next generation to continue to make those strides. Till today, we're still fighting land redistribution to be given back to the rightful owners of South Africa. After Nelson Mandela came Zuma, after Zuma came Thabo Mbeki. No, it was Mandela, Mbeki, then Zuma. Now we have still Ramaphosa, right? Mandela was there for 5 years. Thabo Mbeki for 10 years. Zuma for 10 years. Now you want to complain about Mandela, and yet there were 2 presidents who were there for 20 years old in totality. You want to complain about guys who was 5 years, but what did these 2 guys do? As far as the land was concerned. I do believe in land appropriation without compensation. Did the white people come, take our land and compensate us? No, they never did. So why should we compensate them? They'll tell us because they built the land. No, you did not build the land. You did not build the cities that we live in.
Yeah.
You designed the cities that we
And the
live
Africans
in.
built
But
them.
the people who actually build them physically, brick by brick,
Africans.
are the African people, which you never paid them. It was free labor. So actually, this world that we live in today, that is built up, this developed Africa that we live in, belongs to both black and white. Who built it. Not the whites. You did not build this city by yourselves. You use free black labor to build this city.
Those cities, yeah.
Right? And another thing that Martin Luther King says, he says, in 1863, when slaves got free, with the Emancipation Proclamation, slaves were given nothing to actually start their freedom on.
Yeah.
And yet, whites were being given millions of hectares across the West and Midwest of America, which means that they had an economic base to start on. White European peasants were given this land, and yet the black man was given nothing. So basically, the black man was given freedom to be hung, with no land to cultivate. The very same black man that you brought over to America in chains, involuntarily, right? So what he inherited was freedom and famine. That is not freedom at all. So you see, land is very much at the core of the question of freedom.
Yes.
Because without land, you cannot do anything.
Yeah.
You are going to have to end up working again for the very same master that you got your freedom from.
Yeah.
So it's
So
a pointless
in other words,
freedom.
you are still
There are
kept,
two reasons why land is so important.
Uh-huh.
Land is important because it provides shelter and it provides food. Wait, you've given nothing for us to actually work on. You've given it back to the white peasants. So America need to reflect on that. Africa, South Africa in particular, needs to make sure that the land distribution is happening.
That's true.
Yes.
That's very true. Wonderful. Now, my last segment with you obviously has to do with, the current affairs of South Africa. You mentioned a very important point.
Yes.
That young people are supposed to participate in the political processes. They are supposed to assume leadership.
Yes.
But when I look at South Africa today, I look at the cabinet, I look at the executive, I look at the hierarchy of the leadership.
Yeah.
It is not reflected by this policy or this political position we believe in that youth should participate. What's holding them back? Is it the system? Is it apathy on part of the youth?
Well, definitely there is multiple factors. One of them is that you have the current crop of leaders who are apathetic to the youth. There is a generation gap. They are maybe fearful of the youth. And then you have the youth on the other side who say, no, politics is corrupt, I don't want to get involved in politics. But at the same time, if you don't get involved in politics, who's going to represent your interest? Right? We need young people to get involved in politics so that our interests can be looked after. Currently, 70% of Africa's population are under the age of 35. But when you look at the leadership, that does not represent that 75% of the population. So we as young people need to reflect and look at ourselves honestly and say, whether we like it or not, we have to go into public life and go in there and fight tooth and nail for our positions. If 75% of the population is youth, then 75% of the leadership should also be youth.
The youth, yes, yeah.
So we as young people cannot run away, because otherwise the same mistakes are going to continue to happen. The corruption, is never going to stop.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So we as young people need to come together, have a discussion, acknowledge the facts, and prepare ourselves to take leadership positions of our countries, our respective nations.
Wonderful. That is great, Mr. Mandela. Thank you so much for making the time, and I hope that you enjoyed the rest of your tours and you go back and continue to do the good job you are doing in South Africa.
Thank you very much. Continue blazing that fire, my brother.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice.